Couto Phoenix, and I'm a program manager at the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland, or NMIS, where I manage a skills and training program called the National Transition Training Fund with the Manufacturing Skills Academy, or MSA. I will be hosting this morning's session, which is a half-hour introduction to our Skills Hub model, what's on offer, how you can benefit from this, and importantly, how you can get involved. My panel this morning comprises Stuart McKinnon. I seem to not be able to advance my slides. Apologies, everyone. Oh, here we are. Panel this morning comprises Stuart McKinnon, Skills Director at the MSA, Jose Hernandez, our CPD Manager, Jennifer MacDonald, our Inclusivity Lead, and Gavin Tweedy, founder of Net Zero Nation, our delivery partner. Now, before I hand over to the panel for introductions, I would like to go over some housekeeping and briefly introduce the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland, or NMIS. So this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel. So when you're not speaking, please keep your microphones switched off to avoid background noise. You can have your microphones on or off, as just to reiterate, it is being recorded, so it's up to you. You can turn your microphone on or off. You can ask your questions throughout the session, either by typing them in the chat box or verbally by using the raise hand function. And lastly, please don't hesitate to contact us after the session if you have any more questions that we can help you with. So the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland, or NMIS, is a group of industry-led manufacturing research and development facilities where researchers, industry, and the public sector work together to transform skills, productivity, and innovation, with the idea of attracting investment to make Scotland a global leader in advanced manufacturing. So here's a simple diagram of the NMIS group, and as you can see, it is a combination of core capabilities, which are the Digital Factory, a collaboration hub, and the MSA, or Manufacturing Skills Academy, as well as specialist centres, the Advanced Forming Research Centre, and the Lightweight Manufacturing Centre. Now, if you would like to know more, follow us on our socials, subscribe to our YouTube channel, visit our website, and please contact us via email. I'm now going to hand over to my panel for this morning for introductions, starting with Stuart McKinnon. Stuart.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jill, for organising and facilitating the session today. I'm Stuart McKinnon. I'm the Skills Director with NMIS Manufacturing Skills Academy. We are in the space of supporting employers and individuals right across the landscape, from the foundation apprenticeship in digital manufacturing at one end of the spectrum, through the whole CPD sphere, and then on to KTPs and doctorates and a whole raft of other activity within that. And Jill's mentioned the NTTF programme, and for example, one of the interesting things we have is a bunch of graduates who we've employed and we're embedding within SMEs free of charge at present. But enough for me just now. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Stuart. I'm going to hand over to Jose now. Jose, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jose Hernandez, and I work in the Manufacturing Skills Academy as CPD Manager. I'm responsible for building the portfolio of training products that we're going to be offering our industrial clients. And right now, if you look in our website, you will find there's a lot of support available. And thanks to the funding that we have received through the National Transition Training Fund and other pots of money that we have been able to secure, if you're a manufacturing SME, then you'll be able to access a lot of the support free of charge. So thank you, Jill. I'll hand over to the next presenter.
Jennifer.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jennifer MacDonald. I'm the Equality, Diversity, Inclusivity Project Manager for the NTTF Fund. We're working with specialists in inclusivity around Scotland to engage the SME and manufacturing industry to ensure we can support them in their diversity and inclusivity needs. There's some free training currently going on with supporting a diverse workforce that we're currently running, and that's available to SMEs in Scotland. The link will be, Laura has just sent the link in, Ideal. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jennifer. And Gavin. Gavin, you're on mute.
You would think by now I would know better, wouldn't you? Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Gavin Tweedy, co-founder and director of Net Zero Nation, a social enterprise that was formed to mass mobilise the SME community in Scotland on their net zero journey. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of those experiences with you later in the session. Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone. So as I said this morning, this is it's a Q&A session. So I'm going to start start with Stuart by asking my first question. So Stuart, what is a Manufacturing Skills Academy and what is a Net Zero Skills Hub?
So I think, and I preempted some of your question there, Joel, during my earlier talk there. But I think, you know, for us, the Manufacturing Skills Academy is set up to support. It's that third leg of the stool. You know, you've got R&D, you've got the supply chain, and then skills and education is that vital third piece. In Scotland, we have a mandate from the Scottish Government to transform manufacturing. It's very specific in that area. And that's across all sectors. So that's shipbuilding, that's food and drink, that's, you know, oil and gas companies right across the piece. I think in terms of the net zero, you know, we often talk about products and processes when we think about net zero, but actually for real sustainability, we also need to be looking at the skills and the education ecosystems round about them. And that's why partnerships and collaboration are so important to SMEs, to us, to everyone across the piece. And I think there's a real urgency now to particularly place-based approaches that have an inclusive approach to them, that includes local suppliers, local supply chains, that bring benefits to local businesses and indeed to local individuals. And so I'm really keen to have this dialogue and work with partners like Gavin, because we need to generate some calls to action and move forward on these things. Thank you, Joel.
Great, thanks, Stuart. And as I mentioned before, if anybody has any questions, you please raise your hand and you can ask a question, or you can put it in the chat box, and Laura will signpost the question to me. Okay, so we'll move on, and you know, if you think about a question, please do raise your hand. I'm going to move on to Jose now, and thanks, Stuart, for that you know, concise and very informative answer. Jose, when it comes to workforce development, what are the challenges that organizations face?
Workforce development is a complex activity for organizations. It's something that organizations will need to think about and have a structured program in place. And many organizations struggle with this activity. And there are many reasons for it. Many companies today will be still in recovery mode, you know, impact from the pandemic and Brexit. Some organizations just don't know where to start. And I think we have all heard the lack of time and the lack of funding as reasons for not engaging in this activity. In the last 12 months, we reported probably we are around 100 SMEs. Sorry, we're 100 companies, many of them SMEs, and I'm going to generalize here, but you know, from our experience, we can probably classify them or put them in two camps. We have some companies that, and I think that the problem is a perception issue. So we have some companies that, even though they're still in recovery mode, they have been able to invest and put some effort into developing the workforce and putting a plan in place. And I think it's down to do with how skills and workforce development is perceived and prioritized internally. Some organizations look at this activity as a secondary activity within organizations, and the result of that is perceived as a nice to have. You know, so as soon as you have a new project, a new initiative, a new customer, or a new disruption in the business, then this activity will take second place. The companies that are more proactive that are on the other camp perceive skills as a preventative activity, you know, and as a preventative activity, then it becomes a must-have. So they will make sure that they will always build some time and space to dedicate to this. But what is interesting is all of the companies that we have spoken with, they all agree that skills and workforce development is going to be critical to future success. And it's great that we have some companies in the chat. Maybe at the end it'll be useful to validate our own thoughts. But yeah, I hope that helps to explain what we have perceived, that we have encountered working with companies.
Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Jill.
Yeah, I noticed that. As someone who oversees development of CPD, what support can NMIS MSA offer?
As I mentioned earlier on, at the moment we have, thanks to support from National Transition Training Fund and other pots of funds like Advancing Manufacturing Challenge Fund, we were able to develop materials, so training programs that we currently have on offer, and they are available in different shapes, forms, and sizes. So, virtual training courses that are 100% online. We have webinars like this one. We have workshop support, face-to-face, and other restrictions are being lifted. We're hoping that we'll be doing more in the face-to-face area. And this will help individuals to develop, and it will help to bring some core knowledge into organizations. But we think that if we want to be really transformational, which is really what NMIS is here to do, we need to develop closer working relationships with organizations. And something that we offer at the moment is a discovery meeting where if companies are willing to open their doors to us, we'll be delighted to come and visit them and, at least hear directly from them what challenges they're currently facing. If we can get to see how their operations work, we will develop a better understanding of their challenges and their opportunities. And our network is quite significant. So even if it's not something that we can do directly, then we can certainly signpost to the relevant mechanisms. But I think the objective is, let's develop a better understanding of your organization and see if we can support you by developing that understanding together.
And Laura's, so thanks, Jose. Laura's just again signposted our website and how you can find out more about the CPD. Jose, what's the best way to get in touch? Say, for example, I'm a company and would like to have a discovery meeting. Would it be yourself? Would it be just the inquiries?
Yeah, so we have a business development team, an SME engagement team and a business development team within NMIS. But yes, please get in touch. We have a generic email address, nmis-skills at strat.nmis, and we have also the NMIS inquiries, nmis-inquiries@strat.ac.uk, or I'm happy to share my email with people if they want to approach me directly. But there's many different ways that you can get in touch with us.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. Would anybody else have any questions, comments to add? Okay, so we're going to move on now to I have some questions for Jennifer. So Jen, now that we're post-COVID, the shape and structure of workplaces is the topic of lots of discussion. The word inclusion comes up a lot. So can you give us an example of what inclusion in the workplace means?
Absolutely, yes. So diversity and inclusion, two separate things. Diversity is what everyone is. So you can add stats on that, and that's a lot of what people think of as diversity and inclusion. But inclusion is the culture that you have within your organization or your company. So an example of inclusion that I had just recently with a company was they're going back into the office now and they're hosting meetings in meeting rooms. And one particular employee was very quiet, and people had kind of agreed that that was unusual and spoken to him separately to hear that he couldn't hear what was being said. They were so used to being on Teams that now moving back into the office, he wasn't able to hear what was going on. That's really easy to sort, but if you don't know that person well enough, you wouldn't get that result. So having a really inclusive environment and team throughout your organization helps with the inclusion of what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jen. And I guess, so this, Stuart has described the overarching goals of the Skills Hub, and we're looking to embed inclusion obviously across all of our programs, but also the Skills Hub is also looking to work with different communities across the country to understand their skills needs and to help meet them. So thinking about communities you've worked with in the past, will inclusion look different for different parts of Scotland, and how can employers learn more about inclusion in the workplace? How can they learn how to embed it?
Yes, so inclusion is a organisational kind of objective, and that'll look different for every organisation and every group of people, especially the geographical diversity that Scotland has. And that's something that there's no one size fits all, and there's no destination. So there's no, I've completed my inclusion training, I've completed a survey. It's all learning and a growth and a big journey, and everyone's learning together. We have a Supporting Your Diverse Workforce workshop that is available to all SMEs who are working within Scotland, and it's inclusive of the diversity within gender and race and the inclusivity that's required to go forward in that. It's a 6 hours training course, but it also has a consultancy side to it as well. So once you've finished your training, you get an opportunity for a consultant who specialises in inclusivity to come into your workplace or speak to you in teams to understand what your action plan is and how that can be facilitated. And that's really valuable to companies who are looking to benefit from that.
Okay, great. Thanks, thanks, Jen. And if I can go back to Stuart for a second, Stuart. Can you tell us, because there's been a few programs that have been described. Will SMEs be able to get to take benefits from this for free, or is this a paid service?
Good question, Jill. And so much of this there will be mixed parts of it. Some of it will be free, some of it will be chargeable. I think the key thing is have the conversation, get engaged, and then we can actually start to work out the details. Gavin will no doubt touch on some of the issues when he comes on to his particular part of it. But I think, there's just a raft of different things that we can help with. And what we're really keen to do is, to give SMEs a kind of flavour of what we're talking about here, and just enough to say, look, have the conversation with us, rather than us kind of opening our toolbox and saying, pouring everything on the table and saying, here's what we've got, what do you fancy? Actually, you tell us what your problems and challenges are, and then we can start to say, look, we can help you with this. We can't help you with that, but maybe there's someone else we know who can. Let's work it that way, because I think ultimately it's got to be about businesses, it's got to be about SMEs, and it's got to be about individuals.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stuart.
Thanks, Jill.
Okay, so Gavin, I'm gonna kind of turn the microphone over to you now. And you really, your heart and soul is really SMEs and really helping them. This is your call to action. You're very, obviously very compassionate. You're very passionate about this, sorry. So why the Net Zero Accelerator, and why should SMEs take advantage?
Thanks, Jill. Well, I think for me, it goes back to, we founded the Net Zero Scotland community back in January 21 because we felt that the SME voice wasn't being truly heard. SMEs don't have professional sustainability practitioners, and they're very time poor. So how are they meant to kind of mobilise a net zero journey? Over 90% of the businesses in Scotland are SMEs. They're in the engine room of our economy. So if we don't mobilise that group, we're not going to hit our net zero targets. So we set out to kind of form a community. We now have over 1,100 members today, and we spent a lot of time asking and listening what challenges that they faced. And they said, look, there's a lot of pathways out there to start our net zero journey. We don't have a lot of time. What's the right pathway for us? And we said, well, it's about collective commitment that fall on your own personal journey. So listening to that, we decided to create a 12-month accelerator program that would respond to that challenge that group of SMEs face. And in a few moments, I'll be able to provide a bit more information on that. But essentially, it's about helping businesses start their journey to become more competitive in the market, to become compliant with the legislation that's evolving right now for businesses to disclose their carbon emissions data, and of course to do the right thing to become more climate positive.
Okay, great, Gavin. So could you give us an example now of how the accelerator can help businesses? Yeah,
so I think this might be a good opportunity to put the the slide on screen, if that's all right.
Yep.
So for us, businesses, the first thing they need is to have awareness. So we need to provide them with some education, and certainly the Skills Hub is going to be a great location for businesses to go and start to gain access to that information. As we're sharing out on the screen here, what we realised is it starts with giving people some education through this 12-month programme, and that's about mastering the fundamentals of net zero. And that's one of the reasons why we're so pleased to be a delivery partner, to combine all the educational materials that exist and bringing that into the accelerator programme. Once businesses have got some idea of how to go about it, then we help them measure by providing them with carbon accountancy software and give them one-to-one help, because they've never done this before. It's a new thing. And from there, we'll then achieve a carbon benchmark and become certified to UK government SECR accreditation, which aligns with the greenhouse gas protocol. So even though SMEs don't have to do it today by law, the fact that they're doing it anyway gives them a competitive advantage, makes their brand stronger, and helps them attract the workforce of the future. And of course, we're trying to create those skills and be more inclusive. So it really helps a business take a leadership position. Once they've done that, we move into the management process to actually create a carbon plan and say, there are easy things you can do to remove carbon from your business. And there are more difficult things that involve spending significant sums of money. As you start to invest in those actions, we then say, how do you monetize this? So who are your customers? You know, what customers do you serve? Are you in the supply chain of a larger business? We look to kind of help them commercialize the actions that they've taken to gain that competitive advantage. And then from there, it's about maintaining that carbon reduction journey. And it is a circular thing. Businesses aren't going to achieve this overnight. Even in the space of the first year, maybe you've managed to reduce your emissions by 30 or 40%. With the rising cost in fuel and energy and transportation costs, we've got to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. So it's in every business's interests to look for opportunities to remove carbon to make their business more efficient. And in terms of an example, Jill, because this is community-led, we bring businesses of 10 at a time on the journey. And it's about shared learnings, shared progress, and a shared mission. And this particular cohort we're running at the moment, we get to really understand the business challenges that these SMEs face. And one of the businesses had a capacity challenge. They didn't have enough resources to deliver on a contract they were working on. One of the other businesses actually had a department who had been expanded to cater for PPE, creating PPE materials. And of course, now with that going away, those jobs had to be protected. And we were able to actually match those two businesses up and actually align that demand for capacity with another business in the accelerator. And that's the power of community-led approaches, that we're all in it together. We try and look for opportunities to collaborate, and it's a wonderful story. And that's why you shouldn't take an isolated approach, but join forces with other businesses and sharing the learnings and the progress.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Gavin. And I think that is just the essence of what we're trying to achieve with the Net Zero Skills Hub, which is really to try and get companies and individuals to use to start out with their expertise and then to grow them together. And I think we're here to try and enable that with our CPD programs, with our workshops, as well as the accelerator through our delivery partners. So we have, thanks everyone for all your insights. It's been really helpful. I'm wondering if we have 5 minutes left, and I'm wondering if there's questions or comments from anybody who are from our audience this morning. Okay, I have a question then, if I can ask Jose.
Jill, there's a question. Somebody's raising their hand. I think.
Yeah, sorry, yep, I didn't see that. Thank you. Morag.
Oh, very interesting. I'm just curious to know as to how much of your focus is on technical skills as such, and how much of the focus is on what tend to get referred to as soft skills yeah, I don't really like the term soft skills, but at least it allows us to know what we're talking about. How's the balance, and how are you approaching the two sides of the story?
Stuart.
Thank you, and that's a really great question, Morag. You know, for ourselves, it really is about both sides of that equation, because you can't do anything without both, is the reality. We tend to use the term professional transferable skills rather than soft skills. And you'll see through Jose and the team, you know, we've done a lot of work around about some of those. We've got a program at the moment around about cultural islands, which is probably a really good example of those kind of professional transferable skills and how you map them to changes in technology working within a business. But equally also, you know, the programs that Jennifer's highlighted, much of those are round about the softer side. But actually, I'm using the term softer side, but actually they have a really hard impact on the bottom line for businesses and for individuals. So yeah, absolutely important. And we do all of those.
Great. Does that answer your question, Morag?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Okay. There's the question in the chat box from Jonathan McMullen. Jonathan, thanks for joining us this morning. So the question is, what is the easiest way for an SME to benchmark their net zero journey? Gavin.
Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Jonathan, for asking that question. Actually, it comes down to, why does the SME want to benchmark their journey? Because if it's to comply with a tender, for example, benchmarking it by themselves to self-verify won't comply. So it comes down to, is it because they just want to understand for their own internal reasons, or is it because they're doing it to collaborate and fit in with a tender situation? Certainly, in order to do it, it does require capturing data about the energy they buy, the energy they burn, transport, how staff get to work. There's a need to collect information. And what we find is businesses are quite time poor, and they don't even know what information to key in to the dashboard. So that's why doing it with someone who is expert at it helps, and that's why we use our community to provide those resources within Net Zero Scotland. And then we then bring an auditor in to audit what you've said is true. Because one of the big problems, there's a lot of skepticism today around, well, you say your benchmark is this, but how do we know that's true? So by we bring an auditor in as part of our programme to validate what you've said is true, and then we issue you with certification complying with United Nations Race to Zero and the Science Based Targets Initiative. And that then means that what you have is something that gives you a competitive advantage. If you're in a tendering situation and there are other businesses who are submitting a tender and they haven't done this and you have, it makes you stand out. So it does come back around to asking the question, why are you doing it? There are free calculators online you can fill out, but the challenge is you're self-verifying, and how do you know you've actually keyed in the right information? That's why it has to be a journey where you're working alongside other people. And that's where we think within 3 months, an SME can implement a benchmark, but it takes 3 months to collect that information and produce that and have it validated.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks, Andrew, for your contact information. So we have 1 more minute left, and I have a very, very quick question, and you know, this is for anyone, but maybe Jose, you can answer this. Is the Skills Academy just for manufacturers, or can anyone take the courses?
I think a lot of our courses have designed with manufacturing context in mind, because it's quite tangible sometimes to show examples of application. But the reality depends on the nature of our courses. They can be beneficial for other parts of the organization. We do believe that an organization is only as successful as the accumulation of everything that happens within that organization. And all the support functions could also, in a particular manufacturing organization, could benefit from developing a better understanding of maybe how things work internally. So the courses that we have, particularly the ones that are self-supported, are designed for individuals that have very limited foundations in a particular topic area, because we want to make sure that we take people in the entire journey, you know, from the awareness level to a more technical level. But yeah, if organizations can have a conversation, we'll also be able to better signpost to the support available. But yeah, the quick answer, so that was the long answer. The quick answer is yes, other people could benefit from the support that we offer. So not only for manufacturing companies.
Okay, great. Thank you, panel. You know, this has been really insightful. Does anybody have any last comments to share? Because we're at kind of 12:01. So I'd like to if there's a comment from anybody, and if not, we can close the session. Okay, well, audience, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you found this informative. And obviously, if you're catching this session after the live stream, please do get in contact via the information that was that's provided on the first slides. Also, you can Google us, and you can get us on LinkedIn or one of the other social media channels. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jill. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate what